The stranger sat down, shook his mane of dark grey hair out of his face, pulled a plate of sausages towards him, raised it to what was left of his nose, and sniffed it. He then took a small knife out of his pocket, speared a sausage on the end of it, and began to eat. His normal eye was fixed upon the sausages, but the blue eye was still darting restlessly around in its socket, taking in the hall and the students. "May I introduce our new defence against the dark arts teacher?" said Dumbledore brightly into the silence. "Professor Moody." It was usual for new staff members to be greeted with applause, but none of the staff or students clapped except for Dumbledore and Hagrid. Both put their hands together and applauded, but the sound echoed dismally into the silence, and they stopped fairly quickly. Everyone else seemed too transfixed by Moody's bizarre appearance to do more than stare at him. "Moody," said Harry muttered to Ron. "Mad-Eye Moody, the one your dad went to help this morning." "Must be," said Ron, in a low, odd voice. "What happened to him?" Hermione whispered. "What's happened to his face?" "Dunno," said Ron whispered back, watching Moody with fascination. Rudy seemed totally indifferent to his less than warm welcome. Ignoring the jug of pumpkin juice in front of him, he reached again into his travel cloak, pulled out a hip flask, and took a long swig from it. As he shifted his arm to drink, his cloak was pulled a few inches from the ground, and Harry saw, below the table, several inches of carved wooden leg ending in a clawed foot. Dumbledore cleared his throat again. "As I was saying," he said, smiling at the sea of students before him, all of whom were still gazing transfixed at Mad-Eye Moody, "we are to have the honour of hosting a very exciting event over the coming months, an event which has not been held for over a century. It is my very great pleasure to inform you that the Triwizard Tournament will be taking place at Hogwarts this year." "You're joking," said Fred Weasley loudly. The tension that had filled the hall ever since Moody's arrival suddenly broke. Nearly everyone laughed, and Dumbledore chuckled appreciatively. "I am not joking, Mr. Weasley," he said, "though now you mention it, I did hear an excellent one over the summer about a troll, a hag, and a leprechaun who all go into a bar. Professor McGonagall cleared her throat loudly. Maybe this is not the time." "No," said Dumbledore. "Where was I? Ah, yes, the Triwizard Tournament. Well, some of you will not know that this tournament involves so I hope those who do know will forgive me for giving a short explanation and allow their attention to wander freely. The Triwizard Tournament was first established some 700 years ago as friendly competition between the three largest European schools of wizardry, Hogwarts, Beauxbaton, and Durmstrang. A champion was selected to represent each school, and 3 champions competed in 3 magical tasks. The schools took it in turn to host the tournament once every 5 years, and it was generally agreed to be a most excellent way of establishing ties between young witches and wizards of different nationalities, until, that is, the death toll mounted so high that the tournament was discontinued. "Death toll!" Hermione whispered, looking alarmed, but her anxiety did not seem to be shared by the majority of the students in the hall, many of whom were whispering excitedly to each other, and Harry himself was far more interested in hearing more about the Triwizarding Tournament than in worrying about deaths that had happened hundreds of years ago. "There are several attempts over the centuries to reinstate the tournament," Dumbledore continued, "none of which have been very successful. However, our own Department of International Magical Cooperation and Magical Games and Sports have decided the time is ripe for another attempt. We have worked hard over the summer to ensure that, this time, no champions will find him or herself in moral danger. The heads of Beauxbaton and Durmstrang will be arriving with their short-listed contenders in October, and the selection for the 3 champions will take place at Halloween. An impartial judge will decide which students are most worthy to compete in the Triwizard Cup, the glory of their school and thousands of galleons personal prize money. I'm going for it, Fred Weasley hissed down the table, his face lit with enthusiasm at the prospect of such glory and riches. He was not the only person who seemed to be who seemed to be visualizing themselves as Hogwarts champion. At every house table, Harry could see people either gazing raptly at Dumbledore or else whispering fervently to their neighbours. But then Dumbledore spoke again, and the hall quietened once more. Eager though I know you all will be to bring the Triwizard Cup to Hogwarts, he said, the heads of the participating schools, along with a Ministry of Magic, have agreed to impose an age restriction on contenders this year. Only students who are of age, and that is to say 17 years and older, will be allowed to put forward their names for consideration. This, Dumbledore raised his voice slightly, for several people had made noises of outrage to these words, and the Weasley twins were suddenly looking furious, is a measure we feel is necessary to given that the tournament tasks will still be difficult and dangerous, whatever precautions we take, and it is highly unlikely that students below 6th and 7th year will be able to cope with them. I will personally be ensuring that no underage student hoodwinks our impartial judge into making them Hogwarts champion. His light blue eyes twinkled as they flickered over Fred and George's mutinous faces. I therefore beg you not to waste your time submitting yourself if you are under 17. The delegations for Bulbaxton and Durmstrang will be arriving in October and remaining with us for the greater part of the year. I know that you will all extend every courtesy to our foreign guests while they are with us, and will give your wholehearted support to the Hogwarts champion when he or she is selected. And now, it is late, and I know how important it is for you to be alert and rested as you enter into your lessons tomorrow morning. Bedtime, chop chop. Dumbledore sat down again and turned to Mad-Eye Moody. There was a great scraping and banging as all of the students got to their feet and swarmed towards the double doors in the entrance and into the entrance hall. They can't do that, said George Weasley, who had not joined the crowd moving towards the door, but was standing up and glaring at Dumbledore. We're 17 in April. Why can't we have a shot? They're not stopping me entering, said Fred stubbornly, also scowling at the top table. The champions'll get to do all sorts of stuff that you'd never be allowed to do normally, and 1,000 galleons prize money. Yeah, said Ron, a faraway look on his face. Yeah, 1,000 galleons. Come on, said Hermione. We'll be the only ones left here if you don't move. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, and George set off for the entrance hall. Fred and George debating the ways in which Dumbledore might stop those who were under 17 entering the tournament. Who's this impartial judge who's going to decide who the champions are? Said Harry. Dunno, said Fred. But it's them we'll have to fool. I reckon a couple of drops of aging potion might do it. George, Dumbledore knows you're not of age, though, said Ron. Yep, but he's not the one who's deciding on the champion, is he? Said Fred shrewdly. Sounds to me like once this judge knows who wants to enter, he'll choose the best from each school and never mind how old they are. Dumbledore's trying to stop us giving our names. People have died, though, said Hermione in a worried voice, as they walked through the door concealed behind a tapestry and started up another narrowing staircase. Yup, said Fred airily, but that was years ago, wasn't it? Anyway, where's the fun without a bit of risk? Hey, Ron, what if we find out how to get round Dumbledore? Fancy entering? What do you reckon? Ron asked Harry. Be cool to enter, wouldn't it? But I suppose they might want someone older to know if we've learned enough. I definitely haven't, said Neville gloomily. Neville's gloomy voice from behind Fred and George. I expect my gran will want me to try, though. She's always going on about how I should be upholding the family honour. I'll just have to... Oops! Neville's foot had sunk right through a step halfway up the staircase. There were many of these trick stairs at Hogwarts. It was second nature for most of the older students to jump this particular step, but Neville's memory was notoriously poor. Harry and Ron seized him under the armpits and pulled him out, while a suit of armor at the top of the stairs creaked and clanked, laughing wheezily. "Shut it, you," said Ron, hanging down his visor as they passed.